All right. Hi, Tara.
Hi, Ray.
Hi, it's good to see you, my friend.
You too.
So, thank you so much for setting aside some time. I know you and I have been talking a lot about how excited we are about our upcoming La Loba retreats, and we wanted a chance to be able to hop on Zoom together and talk a little bit with people who might be interested in joining us for one of the retreats about why we think it's as special as it is.
Yeah, it's kind of one of those things where people are like, oh, I haven't really heard of that, or I don't know what that's going to be about. And so I need a lot more information before I'm willing to dive in and sign up.
Yeah, absolutely. So, for any of you who don't know us, my name is Rae Galen Emerson. My business name is Healing Talks Back, and I work almost exclusively with survivors of relational trauma. So, everything from abuse, abandonment, betrayal, deception, divorce, infidelity, that kind of cluster of interpersonal crises that shake up our lives from the inside out. And we're left putting the pieces of that back together.
Yeah. And I'm Tera Brown. I have coached Tera. I help women recover and rediscover themselves and their emotions after betrayal and trauma. So I deal a lot with the same kind of interpersonal crises. As you were listing them off, I was like, yeah, crisis. Yeah. But you and I love that space where we can be such a support to women who are really in need of help and support.
Yeah, not only space that is comforting, but
Mhm.
also empowering. Like I'll
Yes.
sometimes say it's not only the spaces that make you feel better or help you feel better, it's the spaces that help you get better. And there is such a big difference.
Yeah. And really, so if we go into it, like that's really the reason that La Loba was born. So I
Mm.
went to a retreat for myself when I was experiencing betrayal trauma and a lot of just cognitive dissonance and a lot of just like really, I didn't know where to go. I didn't know who I was. And I attended a retreat that was really life changing for me. I tell people all the time, it unlocked my emotions. I had locked away for years and years. I didn't even know how to experience them because I was so unfamiliar with that at that point. But I came back from my retreat and I remember coming back to my support group and saying, I just went to this life-changing event. And because of the nature of the things that we discussed there and the intricacies of my divorce or of my marriage and my relationship, you are all not eligible for that. And so you can't come to this retreat. But it was so amazing that I wish that you could experience something like that. And so that's really where the idea for La Loba was born, for a place, a broader place for women experiencing all kinds of trauma, to from losing a child to divorce and separation to infidelity to just bullying, any kinds of relational, like any sort of relationship where there's a traumatic moment or traumatic experiences or like even a longer term thing, just to be able to find the pieces of yourself that you lost along the way. And that's the story of La Loba. So it comes, La Loba is a short story that comes from a book called Women Who Run with Wolves. And in this short story of La Loba, this woman wanders the desert looking for the pieces of this wolf. And as she finds the pieces, she realizes that when she gets the wolf all put back together, that it comes back alive. And she was searching for the pieces of herself that she lost along the way in the desert. And I mean, what a better metaphor for women in our lives. It's so easy to drop this. Well, this can't be that important to me because so and so needs something else. Or this is easy. It'll just be easier if I just pretend like I don't care about that anymore. And so many times in our lives that we just let something go. And then later on in life, we're like, oh, I think I'm missing that part of me. And I get to go on a journey to find it again.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Beautifully said. That was like a really gorgeous little summary of one of the things that makes the Loba so different from other retreats. And you and I have both been to countless kinds of healing weekends and events of different sorts. And there really is something special about this. I was thinking before we started talking, for me, the first time I went, I was living in LA at the time. There was something that I couldn't access in myself in my day-to-day everyday, Monday through Friday 9 to 5 type of life. There's something very powerful about leaving my home, going to a place I had not been before, walking into a space full of possibilities that were really intimidating but also deeply inviting, and being able to find myself in that quiet, in that space that was created that just would not have happened in my day-to-day life.
Mm-hmm. One of the things I love about this intimate space is the cap is actually 18. We only let 18 women at a time come because I want it to be so intimate. I want it to be an experience, like you said, a personal experience. It doesn't matter so much what the healing the neighbor is having, right? You need to come. The reason that you set aside that time, the reason that you left your home and your family and all of the things, your life and all of your responsibilities is to set aside that time. And we like to call it liminal space. So we create this experience where it's set aside. There's another good example of liminal space is Disneyland. It's not
Mhm.
quite actually reality, right? There's like magical, they come and get the garbage all the time. And, it just, so it's this time that's set apart. And when you come to La Loba, we have this beautiful home that we rent. So it's a cozy feeling. It's not just a conference center that, you're going to be busy from here to there. It's actually like you feel safe and at home, and a beautiful surrounding. This place that we found that we've done it the last few times is in northern Utah. It's absolutely stunning in the middle of a beautiful mountain valley, mountains all around. We hire a chef to come and prepare food for us. It always tastes better when you don't have to fix it yourself. And she takes such good care of us. It's not I had a woman ask me the other day, is this the kind of like go camping and eat salads and tofu place? And I said, absolutely not. It's
Mhm.
cinnamon rolls and chocolate chip cookies and just care because we want to take care of you. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It's really special.
Yeah. Yeah. So what other kinds of questions do people have for you when you start talking about La Loba, or say this is something that I think might be beneficial to you?
Yeah. So, one of the things that I love that you have created so beautifully into the moment to moment experience of La Loba from first thing Friday morning to last thing Sunday night is it is a deeply immersive and experiential weekend.
Mhm.
There is very little time that we just sit around and talk about anything.
Yeah.
Pretty much every activity that we have choreographed, it builds upon the one before it, leads into the one following it, and involves some kind of movement, some kind of creativity, some kind of self-expression. We get up and move around a
Yeah.
lot from one part of the home to the other, to the outdoors, there's a lot of embodiment that happens. I know that's something that I can't do by myself. It's really hard for me to do that just myself in a therapist's office, right? Or in a coaching session. So being in a group of other women who are all kind of moving in the same rhythm, but yet being able to have my own experience of that is really, really unique and special.
Yeah.
There are ways that we leverage each other's energy to do that individual work. So whether we're talking about something intense like grief and anger, or we're talking about something delicate and sensitive like shame or dreams for the future, our identities and how we see and claim parts of ourselves, the parts of us that we thought we would never get back and never want to get back because, it just feels so impossible. There's something about having other people witness that, and then also having them to support us and hold us up if we falter through it, that is just really, really special.
Yeah. Let's talk for a minute about the anger. So I love how you said like we talk about things and then we experience them, because I'm super big on, as we embody those things, as we embody what we learn, as we embody our emotions, we can learn how to heal and release them. And so one of the things that's unique to some of the other retreats that I've been to is we actually do an anger burn. We have an experience of anger. We teach how to do it. One of the things I say is we're not going to hurt ourselves or someone else. But we show you different ways and give you tools to even use afterwards, that you can learn how to use your body to release that anger, because we hold it in so much, and it causes so many catastrophic things in our health, in our physical health, in our emotional health, in our spiritual health even. So I have a funny story about that one. After one of my last retreats, one of my clients called me a few days later and she said, I got really angry at my family, so I decided to go out in the backyard. And she said, I just screamed and I howled and I just yelled all the things that I was, holding in. And I just kind of let the universe have it. She said, pretty soon I heard some howling back. She said, I had actually called in the wolves and the foxes from around my property. She said, pretty soon I was like, and now I'll be going inside. I think I'm finished. But to have a place where you can learn a tool, and it won't be the very same because you're not in that space, but that you can do something about it afterwards. That like one of my biggest things is I never want clients to feel like they have to come back to me over and over and over. I want to teach them skills and tools so that they know what to do when they're in that moment of crisis. Because what if I'm with someone else who's in a moment of crisis, right? I don't want them to be dependent. I want them to learn how to be independent and strong enough to do things for themselves. Yeah.
I can speak from firsthand experience to the fact that you do that well, and it works very well. So for those of you who don't know, I went to my first La Loba retreat. I think it was the first Loba retreat
The first
Tera and her team put on. And I was literally on that precipice of my marriage being over. Like, I remember afterwards saying, I looked back on it, I knew my marriage was over, but there were a few resuscitation attempts along the way to try to bring it back to life. But it had passed that point of no return. And I remember arriving again, having absolutely no idea what to expect. I went because a friend called me and said, hey, I know you're going through a lot of stuff. I really recommend this. I loved and trusted this friend. And I said, okay. And I signed up, and then I spent 2 weeks trying to talk myself out of it. But by the time I got there, like, I literally didn't know what huge changes my life was going to go through when I got back home. I had no way of knowing what I was going to need to get through the changes I didn't know were about to happen. But I left with power statements. I left with power stances. I left with posture in my body to be able to talk back to all of the disempowering stuff that was waiting for me when I got back home. And I remember thinking, there is no human way possible I could have said, do these things to have what you need to get through this. Right. But I got them anyway. So it was a really special experience that way.
One of the things that I love about the whole process, even from the start of creating and writing the protocol, that has changed a little bit over time, like since your first time, and actually because of the addition of you, some other things that we've changed too, but is this moment where it's, if we can trust God to get out of the way, like, so often when I feel like, oh, I know where she's going with this process, I know exactly what's going to happen, and so I'm going to help her get there, right? And when I can hold back and say, as a facilitator, I'm going to let you go where you need to go, and I'm going to trust you and follow you and guide you along the way, but I'm not going to make my idea be what you have to do. Yeah. And as we've come into that, it's so crazy that it's crazy in a way that it's like, all of a sudden every woman gets exactly what she came for. And she might not have even known what it was when she walked in the door. Like you said, I love to see the faces on Friday morning, scared and nervous, like, what in the heck have I gotten myself into? And now it's quiet and it feels a little ceremonial at first, and I just like, what is going on, till the very end of Sunday night, when everyone's like, please, do we have to go home? Can we stay here forever? I always get that question. Can we just stay? And we really create a sisterhood, a tribe, if you will, of women who you can reach out to afterwards and say, today was hard, or like, celebrate with me. We just had a woman the other day post on a group from a few times ago and just say, look, I went on a road trip and we just happened to be right in this woman's path, and we went to visit her, and I took my 7 kids and we visited with her 3 kids, and we had a lot of kids there, and it was just amazing to see that they made a point to get together and see each other again. So it's fun.
Very precious.
Yeah. What else do you think we need to say?
I wanted to touch briefly, you mentioned God a moment ago. One of the questions we always get asked is, how does this retreat relate to people of faith? One faith, a different faith, no faith. So what do you tell new participants who are interested in how we handle faith and issues of spirituality at La Loba?
Yeah. So we've had women of many faiths come to La Loba. And I think that I try really hard with my team to make it so that we talk about spirituality and what that means for you. So I'm not
Mhm.
going to prescribe what I think or believe onto you, but I'm going to open the door to let spirit, the universe, nature, God, however you see it, come into play. That God is the word that I choose to use, but all of us need that spiritual element, whether it's meditation and quiet space or nature or time with God. I believe that's one of the 4 pillars that we have in our lives. So I'll just quickly say physical, emotional, mental, and spiritual. And when we pay attention with intention to each one of those areas every day, we don't have to give equal billing to all of them because that's not realistic. But if we can put intention into each one of those places each day, we feel more settled and more balanced. And I have a lot of anecdotal evidence that when we over focus on one of those areas, we still don't feel very balanced. So
Yeah.
yeah, so women of all faiths, women of no faith, I think we've had probably all of it.
Mhm.
And I've never had that as a complaint on the back end. Oh, there was too much of this or too much. Like, it really is finding that place inside yourself.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah. Thank you for answering. That's very consistent with how I've experienced each of the retreats as well.
Awesome. I do want to say that, we've talked a little bit about it and the pace that we go at, but
Mhm.
I often tell people it's kind of like getting 6 months of therapy in 3 days. So it's
Okay.
an intense thing, right? And I'm not going to guarantee that that's what it is, but you're going to move. You're going to move with your body and with your mind and with your thought patterns. You're going to move in such a way that you're going to look back and think, what just happened to me?
Mhm.
In a really great way. And then we teach you tools at the back end to take it home with you, because it's really
Yeah.
easy to do in a safe, enclosed environment. Well, easier, right? And then we have to talk about, how am I going to take this home? And that is part of the process, because I can't just leave you hanging and just shut the door and lock it behind you and say, see ya. I really want to make sure that you have the tools that you need to go home. And so often I will say to a client, pull out your La Loba notebook and go to this page or go to this process and read what you said. Read what you said to yourself. Read what you
Yes.
remember and what you took.
I love that you mentioned the notebook. You guys, the notebook is one of the best parts. It becomes like this little time capsule of the weekend, because at intervals, very frequent, consistent intervals throughout all of the different activities and exercises we engage over the course of the weekend, we pause and we give you 5 minutes here, 10 minutes here, 20 minutes here, 30 minutes here to write or to draw or to somehow capture, scribble if you must,
Mhm,
what that meant to you. Because when you go home, you will have had hours and hours and hours worth of stuff.
mhm.
And to be able to grab that, open it up, and get that little snapshot of what you experienced I have 6 of them or so on my bookshelves. And that first one is still the one that means the most, because there is stuff in there that was life or death stuff.
Mhm.
And you touch on how much happens during one of these weekends. I'll often say, if you're looking for a retreat where you can go and take a nap and watch a movie and soak in the tub and whatever, this is probably not that kind of a retreat. If you are looking for something that is saturated, that's one of the best words I find, because it doesn't feel forceful, but it feels full,
Mhm.
right? Saturated with tools, ideas, experiences. It's jam-packed. Like,
Yeah.
there's a lot that we
Yeah.
put into these days.
There is a hot tub. You can bring your swimsuit, and there is
But,
time at the end. We don't go till midnight. I know some like brutal retreats where they like go from 6 a.m. to
oh
2.
gosh, no.
No, we do give you time to rest, plenty of it, but there is a hot tub. I have known several people to hop inside. Anything else that you think we should share?
Let me ask you this. Who do you think is an ideal
Mm,
participant
good
for La
question.
Loba? This speaks to who and what
Thank
specifically.
you. Okay, so yeah, this is a great place for someone who has done a little bit of work, who has a little bit of I want to say time under her belt, but I have had women say, I just found out yesterday. I just found out last week. And I think that the shock of your system of just finding out, we're going to say, right, is probably La Loba might not be the place for you because it's so shocking in and of itself that I think someone who has been doing work for a little bit, someone who feels like they're ready to take a new move, they've done some therapy or some group work or read a ton and just feel like they're ready to take that next level. We actually, this fall, we have an opportunity, thanks to Rae, actually, and her great idea, to do it twice. So we're going to do one of our, I'm calling it the regular version of La Loba. And like I said, that's for any woman who has experienced trauma in her life. And trauma comes in so many. It can come in those daily little sideways glances, or the way that someone spoke to you, or it can be this giant moment of finding out, or, a moment of infidelity, when it's discovered, a discovery of some sort. That one is actually in November. We're going to do it from November 10th to the 12th. We do it over a weekend so that it's easier to get away from your life. So Friday to Sunday, like we said. We actually are going to do another one, just a variation on a theme for women who are divorced or divorcing and separated. And that one is going to be in September, at the end of September. It's the 22nd to the 24th. And Rae, I would love for you to speak a little bit about your idea, about where the impetus for this different came from.
Yeah. Thank you for that invitation. I really appreciate it. So let me first say, any woman, regardless of relationship status, has a beautiful, natural, appropriate place in our kind of traditional or vintage, how do we call it, vintage, Loba format. But there's something that happens when women go through separation or divorce that makes our experience feel different. One of the things that feels different is it's no longer safe and healthy and healing. It feels painful sometimes, especially if it's really raw, to hear stories of women whose relationships are flourishing or they're thriving in a situation that we didn't survive, right? And there's also that sense of kind of wanting to hear our experience and our trauma and our healing reflected in the lives of other people who are experiencing it in a similar way. And so because of that, divorced women tend to create our own little cocoons of sorts of people who are experiencing things the way that we are experiencing them. And so I have very much for a long time wanted to be able to offer La Loba, a version of La Loba that is that space exclusively for women who are divorced. Maybe it was a long time ago. Maybe it's imminent, like right on your horizon. Maybe you're in that weird in-between space, but your relationship isn't going to make it. Maybe you weren't married to someone. Maybe you had an engagement or a serious dating relationship or something that was also a significant loss to your expectation of what your romantic or intimate or life partnership was going to be. And so that's a nice space to invite women into as well. So it we wanted to create a place where everybody feels welcome, and there can be additional layers of kind of sensitivity and commonality for a specific subsect of this bigger demographic.
Yeah, because you're right. We have had women who are divorced before and they fit in perfectly well. It's not that they're not welcome, but there is always that, how come your husband's working on this so hard? Or how come this is working for you? Or how, it's just this moment of, oh, maybe that might be another layer of what's wrong with me.
Yeah.
And I want to say, absolutely nothing.
Yeah. We'll check all that stuff at the door.
Yes. Yeah.
So, Tera, a minute ago, I asked you what you thought was the kind of the ideal client for this particular kind of weekend, or the ideal participant. What came to my mind when those words came out of my mouth was that I find this weekend is really powerful for women who feel stuck. I don't necessarily believe in stuckness as a concept and our experience or reality, but I do believe in it as a feeling. And sometimes, kind of like you mentioned, the opposite of that being brand new and still in shock and horror over what's falling apart in our lives, we get to that place where we've done everything that feels obvious to do and we still don't feel better. So now what? Right? So I find that this is a really beautiful sequence of support to be able to shake things up a little bit and really get things that have kind of gotten stuck unstuck.
Yeah. I love that. Reminds me of my favorite Yoda-esque quote, which, because he says there is no try, there is do and do not. And I love to say, stop trying harder. If something's not working, or if you're still feeling stuck, stop trying harder and do something different. And this is certainly something different. It's not totally out of the realm of all the possibilities, but it's going to feel different because we're just used to coming to a conference. Where's my agenda? This is what I'm going to learn. These are the classes I'm going to choose. This is what's going to happen. And we don't operate like that.
Yeah. Yeah. It's very different.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. So Tera, if women have other questions, I know we can't touch on everything or answer everything here. What do you recommend as far as getting those questions answered?
So I am going to, in the notes of this video, I'm going to put a link to both of the retreats, the September one and the November one. And on each of those pages is a little button that says, if you have other questions, you need a 30-minute conversation, I'm happy to answer any other questions that might happen.
Wonderful. Wonderful. And I'll just extend that myself as well. If there's anybody in my particular network who has questions that you'd like to run by me, I have an open door and I would be happy to answer them also. So we make a pretty good team in terms of we really seek to give you the honest information you need to make the most informed decision possible in terms of whether this is or isn't the right fit for you at this time.
Yeah, that's exactly right. It's not a secret. None of it is secret. It's just more like it's sacred, and we're trying to hold it back so that it doesn't scare you away, maybe.
Well, there definitely is that. And also I would say that we build up like defenses or ideas about something preconceptually or in advance. And there's something different when you're just all of a sudden sitting in a room and you don't know what's going to happen next.
Right.
And the facilitators, who hopefully we have your trust and your well-being at heart, you know, can say, okay, here's what's going to happen. And in that moment, you get a choice. Are you going to go with that flow?
Right.
Are you going to take the invitation that's available, or are you going to opt out, which might be a self-care decision as well? But either way, we want to give you the opportunity to experience it organically versus getting up in our heads about it like we so
Right.
often.
And I love that you said that. We're not going to force anyone to do anything. You can opt out of everything if you want. I would invite you to do it, to participate, and so that you don't leave on Sunday thinking, gosh, I wish I would have done that one thing. But if for self-care you need to opt out, that is completely acceptable.
Yep.
Yeah. Awesome.
Okay. Tera, thank you for taking the time. I'm excited, more excited every day as it's getting closer.
Yeah.
And we'll get this out to the people who may want and need to hear it.
Perfect. Thanks so much, Rae. I love y'all. Love ya.
Likewise.
See ya.